Okay. Oh, boo. So I'm not technologically savvy, but I'm good at other things. So at any rate, this is one of the elements that prompted me to name my presentation. I've got 99 problems with the gym ain't one. Is this being of light, Yahira, who I've dubbed the gym angel, that I get to work out with regularly, who kind of flits about the gym, gives kisses, high fives, and generally lots of love. So there are pretty much four main areas of life that someone might excel in. So generally it's work, relationships, finances, or health. And one thing that I think is a little unfair about the realm of health is that it's so visible, but yet other things aren't. So it's like generally we don't know about someone's, bank statement or if they read their children stories at night. But we might know what they're up to outside of perhaps their job. So one thing that I've actually kind of casually wished for is on Instagram to see someone like killing it on a spreadsheet, at their office or at their desk, and kind of visibly helping me to see how they might excel in something else that I don't do so well. And so at any rate, I feel like Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, stuff like that, it's easy to start to maybe place importance on something that seems outside of us, that seems a little bit harder, but to also be inspired by it. And so anyway, this is something that I have a personal wish for, which maybe isn't quite as interesting, it's not as flashy, but it doesn't mean that it's not valuable or where someone could potentially be succeeding in their life. So with change, this is something that, I talk about this with people at times, like new habits. And so on my planet, which you are on at this moment, and I hope all this makes sense and seems so relevant to your life, is generally there's like two main things that are required for someone to do something. So it's like the thing that you want to do, and then it's like everything around it. And I think that we kind of forget about the everything around it piece. And so I don't know if you've ever had a relationship with kind of like the thing that was so simple to do, I'm just gonna go to bed 15 minutes earlier or something, and you see this thing kind of like slipping through your fingers, like with an element or an air of bewilderment. So I'm in this realm, but I personally have kind of a mild irritation about like modern day mystics, like stemming from the gym. And I feel like, if you've gone through something, if you have, struggled or achieved something, like we all have wisdom to share. But personally, like I feel like my aim in this is to kind of like pull back the curtain on several elements of like what might not necessarily be known about people that are really focused on fitness. Extremes are one element, and not that there are no absolutes for sure. But what's bad about on the right, and like what had to go on to what is achieved on the left. And so, an aside, I personally think vanity is an amazing motivator. So like, especially in the realm of health, like if this driver is somewhere in your vehicle, like generally you'll never run too far aground or away from what might feel good as well as look good. Consistency is something that is required to create anything, whether that's like growing a plant, or building a business, or losing a staggering amount of weight, and that is absolutely something to be commended for sure. One thing I hear a lot about is when people talk about fitness, if it's something where it's like, oh, I'm not really used to doing this isn't my habit, I'm not disciplined. And my statement to that is bullshit. Like if you have children, if you have a job, like if you get up every day, if you have like committed to following through on the thing that you've intended to do, whether that was a consequence or a reward, you are committed. And it's totally possible just to kind of like shift what you're focused on. So this madness is something that I feel like such a sense of indignation and pride about the ability to create what you might wish for in a way that's not crazy. Like when people weigh their food or like count macronutrients or like compare rep schemes and crap like that, like it's an element of, in my opinion, dysfunction. Like it's not necessarily an indication of health. And so one thing that I feel pretty passionate about is that when people kind of embody something that is, you know, elevated or extreme, like it could still exist within balance, but often it doesn't. Extremes are something that essentially, like all or nothing thinking, they tend to be unconscious. It's easier than actually being present. And typically, like when we are very identified with something being a certain way, it's because it represents more. Like it, you know, embodies a sense of control, which as all humans we need, but not necessarily a sense of like inner control or inner value. And so again, it's like awesome, rocket, like that's fabulous. But to have it be at the detriment at the rest of life is definitely not healthy. And so anyway, so I just wish to share all of this in a way that's potentially useful or at very least interesting, and that essentially, like if one witnesses, you know, something that kind of, or someone that embodies health, I just wish for you to know that both like beauty as well as health could very well be in the eye of the beholder.